Hi, I hope you're doing well, and I would like to share with you today a short thought on today's Torah portion. So the majority of today's Torah portion talks about the holidays of the year, starts off with the Shabbat and goes on with all the holidays from Rosh Hashanah all the way Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Passover, Shavuot, and so on and so forth. And of course the counting of the Omer, which we stand in today during these weeks. So I'd like to share with you two ideas. The first idea is that although the Torah has a certain order to the Torah portions, Maimonides in his book of laws, he actually changes things around just a little bit. Nevertheless, it's important for us to question, why is it that Maimonides goes and changes this order? We know that Maimonides was a very, very holy rabbi, a great rabbi and a doctor and so on and so forth, a philosopher. And he doesn't take these things lightly, yet he goes and changes this order a little bit, just a little bit, but nevertheless we need to understand why does he do so. So we could answer this question by looking at his introduction to his book on the holidays, and he says as follows. He says, Nachalti edvotecha lo'olam kisason li bihema, which means that I give you an inheritance, these commandments, forever, and you should be happy with it. You should celebrate these holidays. What's he mean to say? He's telling us that there's a fundamental principle in Judaism, and this is so important for us to always remember. And this is why he changes the order. He says, although it's true that the Torah tells us an order to the holidays, but it's important for us to know that although there's an order to this, and of course there's a calendar, we have to follow this calendar, but it's even more important for us to know that we have to live with these holidays throughout the whole year. Not just when it's on the calendar and those are the days that you celebrate it. And once that day passed, forget it, chuck it. We put it onto the calendar. We don't have to celebrate Passover until next year comes around. Now we count the Omer. Shavuot is going to be coming soon. We'll celebrate the giving of the Torah when the time comes. And then we don't have to bother it for another 12 months, bother with it for another 12 months. He says, no. Every single day of the year, we really have to think about all those holidays, because every single holiday has a lesson for us to think about and to live with, even if we're not observing that holiday today. So it's true, today we might not be eating matzah. That's true. There is a second Passover that's coming up tomorrow, so then tomorrow we'll eat a little bit of matzah, that's true. But I'm talking about overall, we don't have to eat a Seder and the whole 9 yards. And of course, we don't have to sit in the sukkah this weekend because it's not Sukkot, so we don't have to say the blessing of 4 kinds and so on and so forth, and it's not Rosh Hashanah and so on. But the lessons and the meaning that each holiday brings for us, that we have to live with 24 hours a day, 12 months a year. And that's when we say forever. At all times, we have to take these holidays and live with it. And that's why he changes the order just a little bit for us to know the importance. And he goes basically an order of importance of which holidays are more important to us as far as severity and the holiness of the days and so on and so forth. But this is the lesson that we have to learn with it. And therefore today, I'm going to go a little bit out of order as well, and I would like to take a lesson from the holiday of Sukkot. The Torah teaches us as follows, that on Sukkot, we build a sukkah. Why do we build a sukkah? To remember that when we were in the desert, God provided for us with clouds of glory, it says, so that during the day, when it was boiling hot out in the desert, these clouds protected us with shade, so that we shouldn't be so hot. And by night, when it's freezing cold in the desert, these clouds protected us from the cold. But the truth is, these clouds had other jobs as well. What was that? During the day or the night, whatever it should be, in the desert, there's snakes and scorpions and so on and so forth. There's also different hills and different valleys and so on. And therefore, these clouds protected us by miracles and kept the Jewish people safe. But we also know that there are other miracles in the desert. We had, for example, the manna from heaven. We had water from the rock. We called it the Miriam's well. And we had other miracles. So why is it that specifically we build a sukkah to remember the miracle of the clouds? So I would like to answer this question with a law. There's a law when it comes to building the sukkah that we have to make sure that the roof of the sukkah, called the schach, has to have more shade than sun. How do we measure if there's more shade than sun? So we're going to get a little technical here. There's 2 ways to measure. Either by looking at the roof and seeing If there's more shade than sun, you look, you measure, you look up to the sky and you see, is it covered with more shade than sun? Or you look down to the floor and you see, does it look like it's more sun on the floor, more shade on the floor? Two ways to look. So the rabbis teach us something very, very interesting. Now this is a little scientific, because we know that if the roof has exactly 50-50 or 52% versus 48%, then the floor is going to have much more sun. If the roof is, let's say, 60% shade and 40% sun coming through, then the floor is going to be closer to 50-50, because the way the sun works, it spreads out, and it's going to be more like 50-50. So the rabbis teach us something fascinating. They say, as long as the roof has a majority of shade, it's fine. We don't worry about looking at the floor. In other words, if we want to worry about the floor, the table, whatever it is, where people are sitting, that should have more shade, then the roof is going to have to be like 75%. He says, no, as long as the roof has more shade than sun, that's kosher. The question is why? Why do we measure by the roof and not, practically speaking, what we are actually using, how much shade we have? And the answer I find to be a fascinating answer, and I think this is the lesson for us to take today. The Torah is teaching us like this. What's the goal of the sukkah? The goal is not just about us using it. The goal is, what's the intention of using the sukkah? The intention is that we should remember that there's a God in this world. That God took us out of exile, and that God protected us during those years in the desert for 40 years. And not only then, God is protecting us even now during this coronavirus. And we should never forget that. We should always look up to heaven and see, is there more shade than sun? Is God protecting us? Is God protecting us from the virus? Is God protecting us from all the troubles that we're having? I know the economy is shot. I know that's true. But is God protecting us? God wants us to have emunah and bitachon. God wants us to have faith and trust in Him. And God says, I am always protecting you. As long as you have more shade than sun, as long as you have more trust than doubt, we are in good hands. I know down at the bottom, when it comes to reality, we sometimes have more sun than shade. Sometimes we have more doubts than trust. I understand. But when we look up to heaven, as long as then you know that the truth is that God is protecting us, you are good. And that's when it comes to the law. We say, have trust in God. And this is something we have to know. Of course, we have sometimes doubt in our life. That's being realistic. That's practical. That's part of the world we live in. But overall, God wants us to know that as long as we look up to heaven, once in a while during we're eating our food, and this is a lesson not only for Sukkot, but year-round, even today, during May, when it's supposed to be nice, during spring, not during fall, even though it feels like fall, more like spring. But the idea is that we should live with this message throughout the year, and hopefully we'll be able to get rid of this virus, and we should go back to not only to yellow, but to green, and life like not just the new normal, but to the old normal. And we should have life as we know it, and it should be a good year, success, and blessings to all. Shabbat Shalom.